Hello and a very warm welcome to the Late Breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking. A few days after the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, of course, the last race of the season. But we've got predictions to review, Sam. We made some predictions like 9 months ago, 10 months ago, and we got them all right. We now get to review all of them.
We don't need to review them, Ben, if we got them all right. That's it. Job done.
Narrator. They did not get them all right.
Yes. No, famously, we're terrible at them. Hence, our bold predictions combined, we only got 7 out of a possible whatever 3 times 24 is off the top of my head. I'm tired.
7. 100%.
Good. Harry, you're here. Hello.
Hello. It's my least favourite episode of the year.
Oh, it's the joke. The joke's coming.
Also, it's ironic that it always happens at Christmas and we have the song, It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. Yet this is not the most wonderful time of the year, Andy Williams. I beg to differ. Yeah. Suck it, Andy.
Andy hadn't heard the joke when he wrote that song.
The big beef of 2024, Harry versus Andy Williams.
Honestly, that and George Russell versus Verstappen, I'm here for it.
Get the popcorn out.
It's a Wednesday episode, so, you might be Andy Williams at the end of this thing. I'm excited.
It's a good point.
There you go. You've got one ready just in case
sorted it already.
Yeah. We are going to be reviewing our predictions. So we did teammate wars at the beginning of the year. We did drivers and constructors predictions. We'll get to that a little bit later on. We are, though, going to start with a little bit of chat on Lewis Hamilton, who, of course, completed his final race for Mercedes at this weekend's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. His Merc career comes to an end with 6 championships, 84 wins and 153 podiums. Not bad, as the kids might say. Not bad at all.
NBMB.
And in all 3 metrics, that is the most anyone's got for a single constructor. So, I mean, big picture, Sam, we'll look at, I'm sure this will be a question for years to come, but do you think at this point it's the greatest team and driver partnership that this sport's ever seen?
I mean, factually, statistically, yes, you've just said it. You can't really argue with the stats. The numbers are telling a whole story, right? They went on to achieve everything you could. They won a lot of Grand Prix. They won a lot of championships. They picked up a lot of pole positions and scored a lot of bloody points. And I think the comment that really made me laugh, actually, was Toto Wolff coming out and saying he'll always be Mr. Mercedes. He'll always be an ambassador. And I thought, yeah, but the reason he left you is because you didn't give him an ambassadorial role for Mercedes. So that's why he's gone. So I thought that was quite funny. But nonetheless, I do think Lewis Hamilton will be synonymous with Mercedes. And not just the racing team, but as a brand. You've got to remember that he's only ever really driven anything Mercedes related. Even in his junior career, he was part of that Mercedes junior program, went into McLaren, which was at that point, of course, powered by Mercedes' famous McLaren-Mercedes partnership with that silver chrome livery that Ben famously hates. He has been a runner of Mercedes his entire life, pretty much his entire life. So you've got incredible partnerships throughout history. Schumacher-Ferrari is the one that really comes to mind as another big one. Verstappen-Red Bull now is becoming incredibly popular in the modern era, of course. And there are others throughout history that really do stand clear. But this one really feels like it went above and beyond, not just in the longevity of how long they were together, but in what they were really able to achieve. It's culturally, they became really synonymous with one another. Mercedes themselves adopted a lot of what Lewis Hamilton believed in or what he stood up for or what he was an advocate for. And I think Hamilton really was able to bring up the Mercedes brand to a whole new demographic, a whole new world of people that be interested in the sport, and people that follow just Lewis became more interested in the Mercedes brand themselves. So, yeah, it's not just on the racetrack in terms of their success. I think culturally, financially, in a business sense, they are very much one and the other, and they've helped each other at every turn. So I would listen to an argument if someone said it wasn't, but I do think they'd be wrong.
Harry, are you wrong?
I mean, constantly, mate. As we're about to find out, I think, on this episode.
Plenty to share around, don't you worry.
Oh, goodness
It's
me.
not good.
Senna, McLaren, Schumacher, Ferrari, Verstappen, Red Bull, as you've mentioned, Sam, and Hamilton, Mercedes. They're the 4 synonymous. If you think of F1, you say someone names a driver or asks you to name a driver, and team partnering. They're the ones you go to that just make you think about F1, and I think that will be enshrined in F1 lore Hamilton's and Mercedes' reign, because as you say, Sam, it is statistically the most successful pairing we've ever had, and we said it about Schumacher, but it's very unlikely that anyone's going to beat it. Well, TBC about what Verstappen does at Red Bull, but it's very unlikely that anyone's going to beat it anytime soon. So, yeah, I think it'll be a part of the culture of the sport for forevermore. And what a legacy. It's weird, and I saw Lando Norris made a comment about this. He clearly isn't, but the way we've been talking about it and the way the weekend went, really felt like he was retiring. He obviously wasn't. He's not. He's coming back. But that I think in itself speaks to what a big deal this is that he's leaving. He's leaving the team, because it's a bit different. But Senna left McLaren in the early 90s. They didn't make quite as big a deal. But I think if that was nowadays, we'd have had the same celebration around it. When Schumacher left Ferrari, he was leaving the sport, so that was slightly different. And I think that's why that felt like it was like a retirement party for Hamilton, when it obviously wasn't. So, yeah, that in itself speaks to the legacy that he and Mercedes are leaving behind. And it's a brave new world we're entering in. Formula One has not existed without a Lewis Hamilton-Mercedes partnership since 2006, which is quite a while ago now. So it's a brave new world. It's a brave new world for Mercedes as well. They've not had a non-Hamilton year since 2012. So it's an interesting time for F1, but there's no doubt the legacy that those two leave behind, and we may never see as successful a partnership as they were.
It's certainly, at the very least, in the mix of the greatest of all time, and you've done a good job of listing the ones that are definitely contenders for that number one spot. I'd throw in Vettel at Red Bull as well.
Oh, yeah, fair. Very fair. Sorry, Seb.
Well, I mean, Max has essentially done exactly what Vettel has done in the 4 consecutive drivers' championships at that team. 6 titles, as we've already said, is a record for one driver at a constructor. 84 wins is also a record. Schumacher on 72, Verstappen on 63. Verstappen on 63, that's a bit disgusting. He's only 18, that's ridiculous. But he's already there somehow. I think in terms of win rate, Verstappen and Hamilton are actually very similar now, if you're looking at them with their respective teams. Schumacher's got a bit of an advance on both of them. So Schumacher's on about, or he got 40% win rate at Ferrari compared to 34 for Verstappen and Hamilton. So I think I might still say that Schumacher and Ferrari is the greatest partnership of all time, but you have to be very picky at this point, and you're discussing and debating between all time great partnerships, and this one will absolutely go down as that. And I think like what people sometimes forget, and I know, Harry, you mentioned it, is where Mercedes and Hamilton were before their partnership happened, particularly with Lewis Hamilton. Bear in mind that obviously Hamilton comes into the sport, he's a rookie, he nearly wins the championship in his first year, he does win the championship in his second year, but then through his team not being as competitive as it was and some errors by himself, there was a time where Vettel was a 4-time champion of this sport and Alonso was a 2-time champion and Hamilton had just won championship. And I think there was an outstanding question of, is this going to be a career of such early promise that hasn't been delivered on? Unfortunately, whether you think it's luck or skill that he ended up at Mercedes and in the right spot, it all worked out for both Hamilton and Mercedes. So the way in which he was able to advance his career, the way in which he's gone on to far more success than he even had at McLaren, deserves a lot of respect from both sides, really. In terms of the final season, Sam, obviously we've routinely throughout the year checked in on this sort of question, but how do you think the final season went?
I think this might have been his most tumultuous. The last couple of years have not been easy for Mercedes or for Hamilton, but it felt like at that point it was okay because there was more to do. There was another season coming. There was more time coming up. They could work together longer. The effects of that development, those risque setups, experimental setups they were working on, developing new parts that were uncertain to actually have any effect. it was okay. They could go back to the drawing board. They could try it again. As much as it was frustrating, you could hear it in their voices and you saw the apology letters. There was more time. But the way that this season began with Lewis Hamilton announcing he was leaving Ferrari, which doing that with a whole year to go of a competitive sport where you are considered pretty much the pinnacle, that's so difficult to maintain. That is so hard to run against. And when the car was so regularly poor in comparison to 3 other cars that seemed to be able to regularly go out and win multiple Grand Prix, it was a real struggle. And I think this mentally was the lowest we maybe have ever seen Lewis Hamilton. Even after Abu Dhabi 2021, I think as much as he was struggling with that, he was good to bounce back. He kind of got the bit between his teeth a little bit. I think he came back to 22 ready to go and the car wasn't there. But here it was, the time is running out. There are already 24 Grand Prix, and with every single one we notch off that doesn't go to plan, it's another miss, and it's another miss, and you don't get it back. You're not having another go. I think it was counteracted with some incredible highs. You only have to look at Silverstone this season and the reaction from everyone in the Formula One community to see how much that meant to spectators, to the team, to Lewis himself. Lewis has won everything under the sun. Everything you can win, he's won it. And you still heard just how much that meant to him, the relief, the outpouring of emotion, his connection with the team and the fans. This year really was a tale of the lowest lows. And I wouldn't be surprised if Lewis Hamilton puts that up there as one of his highest highs. It really was a significant moment in his career because it wasn't just an easy drive. It wasn't like the car worked there one time, put it on pole and he went to the lead. It was a tough race and he won it. He really won it. So difficult year for Lewis. And I've said it, I think it probably was overall his worst year that I've seen him in Formula One. And yet there was still some absolute gems of performances in there that he could truly look back on and be proud of. Silverstone, Spa. I even think Hungary, he did a really good job, but the car wasn't particularly good. Vegas was fantastic. The comeback we just saw in Abu Dhabi. There really are some great highlights that he could take away from. But I do think this has been the hardest year he's pretty much had to face throughout the entire season. And I'm sure, like many of us, it'll be excitement to see him move on to something different rather than thinking might be another year of a difficulty like this.
How did you find the final season of Hamilton Mercedes, Harry?
I only rate 2 of Lewis Hamilton's seasons worse than this one. 2022, which I still think is marginally worse, and 2011, which was also pretty poor. And I know he got wins in 2011, but in terms of just a year, that was terrible.
Felipe Massa. Magnet.
They hated each other.
Yes.
God, yeah, they hit each other all the time.
This year was not as good as 2023, and I know we got a couple of wins, but in terms of consistency, Hamilton was underratedly good last year, which is ridiculous to say because he's a 7-time world champion. But he's very good last year. And the car wasn't there to get the wins that probably he deserved to get with the performances he was delivering. This year, I think as you said, Sam, there have been some highs, some great performances, but also some really crap ones. And I would say this is the first time ever we've seen a real lack of consistency with Hamilton, which I guess is probably why, we've spoken about it before. There's been some, I don't want to call them question marks, but some discussion about where his performance really truly lies as he heads to Ferrari. But I think it's fair to say that this year has been his least consistent year. And again, I'd like to reiterate, that's a year where he's picked up 2 wins. He's still pretty damn good. But for Lewis Hamilton standards, I think this has been quite rocky. I put 2022 less because I think he probably made more mistakes in 2022. I think there's an argument to say that it's because he was trying different setups with the car, etc. The car was a bag of crap. But yeah, in terms of his performance, he had some really sublime... I mean, the Abu Dhabi GP weekend is like a synopsis, a summary of his season, in that the Saturday was terrible and, not all his own fault. The Saturday was terrible. The Sunday was sublime. And that just, illustrates where he's been this year for me. So I hope that's a one-time thing and it's not the start of something. But I think, that's probably why I even though he had wins this year and didn't last year, I'd rate it underneath 2023, to be honest. yeah, some inconsistencies with Hamilton.
I think you've both summarised it very well. It was a tough season, and tougher than I thought it was going to be. When he made that announcement back in February and before the season even started, I was less concerned that it would impact his performance. And maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But it has been a more difficult year than I thought it was going to be. In terms of championship position, he's finished 7th this year. That's his worst ever finish in a championship, which speaks to how good he is that he's been around F1 this long, and 7th is his worst. But yeah, by Hamilton standards, it was difficult. But I agree with you that the peaks were still there. Certainly Silverstone, some of those other races that you reference as well. Like I feel like Hamilton on his A+ game was not only a match for George Russell, he was at his best. I still think he probably was better than George Russell. But the issue was twofold. It was consistency and it was qualifying. His consistency has been really his trademark across his career, certainly his Mercedes career. But we did often see bad qualifying, good race, or just a week when nothing went right and then the next week everything seemed to go right again. He never seemed at one with the car from the off, to be honest. So that was certainly one thing. Russell was by far the more consistent of the two drivers. And then in terms of qualifying, like we've only seen once before this season, Lewis Hamilton out-qualified over a season by a teammate. And that was Rosberg in one of their seasons together. Other than that, he's either drawn or beaten his teammate. And this year, it wasn't close. Like he was out-qualified 17 times by George Russell. So he was taken to the cleaners, let's face it, on Saturday performances. But yeah, overall, like I do think that the peak of his performance is still there. But the question for next season is, can he find his qualifying form again, or at least some of it? And can he reclaim that consistency? Sam, where are you at in terms of him moving to Ferrari next year?
It's going to be a really tough challenge. It's not just going to be difficult settling into a new car. He's going to have to culturally adapt. I wouldn't be surprised if Lewis Hamilton behind the scenes has been on Duolingo all year, desperately trying to learn Italian phrases so he can fit more into the team.
I'd watch that.
What, Lewis Hamilton on Duolingo?
Yeah. That sounds like the next Sky Sports special, like away with him and Brundle at the home cinema onto Lewis
Hamilton's secret Duolingo account.
Yeah.
He's got a lot to fit into. This is the biggest change in his career. And it's been a pretty long and magical career, as we've already stated. So a lot of challenges, a lot of things he's going to have to overcome. He's going up against Charles Leclerc. If you think George Russell was bloody good on a Saturday, then Charles Leclerc is pretty much the man to beat at the moment. If Hamilton finds even 50% of his Saturday form, he could still win a title if Ferrari give it to him. If Ferrari give him the car, I do think he will settle and he could still go on and win it. Because I think Hamilton could still throw an overtake whenever he needs to. I think he could drive off into the distance wherever he wants to. If you give him a sniff, he's like Fernando Alonso. You know, we've seen those guys, those OG Formula One guys that drive in a certain way. You give them a whiff of a win of a championship, and they will not let it go. They will not back down. You know, it's like a dog holding on for dear life. They will not let it go. And I think that's still the case. He just needs to settle and be comfortable. And I do think with Lewis being such a sensitive soul and quite introverted, there is a real risk that he is almost backed into a corner a little bit. It gets to him a bit. It's overwhelming. You know, he gets a bit of a sensory overload. And I do hope that they seem all very friendly and like they're already making an effort. You saw it when he got out of the car at Abu Dhabi. The amount of Ferrari engineers that walked over to him and kind of shook his hand and pat him on the back. And Leclerc was there, who has such utmost respect for him. I do think they'll welcome him with open arms. But I hope he embraces that and he settles and he doesn't go into this all a bit rigid. Always going to be like last year. I hope he just shakes it all off, remembers who he is, and he's able to crack on. Because I do think there's enough of him in there that could pull out a championship if the car is given to him.
I think at a minimum, he needs to do what Carlos Sainz has done on the qualifying, which is over the 4 seasons that Leclerc and Sainz have been teammates, Leclerc has out-qualified Sainz 64% of the time. And if Hamilton can meet that sort of standard, then maybe he will back himself in terms of his race pace to be there with Charles Leclerc. The key is, in terms of qualifying, even if he is being outperformed by Leclerc, it's just ensuring that it's not by much. Because if he's a 10th behind and he's starting 1 position lower, he can work with that. But we've seen at a few occasions this season, like Vegas is a very good example. His race pace was phenomenal, But for fighting for the win, it didn't matter because by the time it got by all the cars he needed to get by, Russell's got a lead that he can't catch. So that for me is going to be the key. I'm maybe slightly controversial here, Harry, but we know the Abu Dhabi post-race test has been going on. And as far as I understand it, Lewis Hamilton had the opportunity to test with Ferrari. Fred Vasseur wanted him to test at Ferrari and he turned it down, saying that it wasn't how he wanted to start his Ferrari career. It didn't feel right, which I don't argue with. But a lot of other drivers have taken this opportunity where Hamilton seemingly hasn't. Is that a problem?
No, I don't think it's a massive issue. I think we said this previously about this end of year test. It's the drivers have been there today as we record this testing, which is all well and great. Get a good few press shots of them in their new gear and doing some laps, but they're then going to disappear for a good month or so. And we're not saying they'll be out of contact, but it's quite a what's the word? I don't know, just quite a jolted start to their career there. And we've seen lots of drivers do it before. I don't think it's going to put them at a particular disadvantage, especially the cars aren't going to be the same. It would just be more around personnel, but Hamilton can do that in his own time in terms of he can visit the factory and see them there after they've had a rest and stuff. And often it, especially with Ferrari as well, we've seen the videos of Carlos Sainz's goodbye. I think they're quite emotionally attached to Carlos Sainz. I'm not saying they wouldn't be professional about it, but just give them a bit of space and let them do their thing and then go from there. So, because performance-wise, I don't think you gain anything. Don't learn anything from these cars versus next year, apart from maybe a gauge on where where the performance lies right now versus where the performance lies in 2025. But it would more be from a personal level, and to be honest, I don't think that's going to make a huge difference for Hamilton.
Fair enough. We'll take our first break on this episode. On the other side, we're delving into pre-season predictions.
Uh-oh.
Hey.
Welcome back, everyone. This side of the break, we'll have a look at teammate wars predictions. The other side will look at drivers and constructors. So if you weren't with us at the beginning of this season, or indeed any season that we've done on this podcast, we do teammate wars, which is essentially looking at all 10 constructors, and we ask ourselves the question, which of the two drivers are going to finish with the most points? We add them all up at the end of the season as to see who was right and wrong, and the person with the most points wins. This was possibly the most boring version of teammate wars we've ever done because we agreed about nearly everything. But there's still some interesting results for us to discuss, even if we agreed on all of them. So we'll go in Constructors Championship order, which means we'll start with, doesn't seem like a correct sentence, the Constructors Champion, McLaren. Lando Norris managed to win this one by 82 points, 374 versus Piastri's 292. All three of us were correct in saying that Lando Norris would win this one. Obviously, the car was start to finish, Sam, a little bit stronger than it was last season. Even if the car did improve last season, both drivers have scored quite a lot more points than they had in 2023. If we're looking at the margin between the two drivers, is it roughly what you thought it would be?
Yeah, pretty much. Piastri's second season only, of course. I think if I go back and listen to the actual episode, I think I said if they come around about 50 points away from each other at the end of the season, Piastri can hold his head up and say, I've done a really, really good job here against someone who's really embedded themselves into the team, into the sport. Piastri's season looks very much like Mount Everest. It started pretty low at the start of the season. In the middle of the year, it was sky high. He was having a great time. And then it slowly seemed to tumble back down again as the form got worse. So I think what's a little worrying for Piastri is he didn't end on a high. He didn't get particularly very good the last 3 or 4 Grand Prix. He was very good about Baku back to Hungary. And then that was it. So I'm hoping that he kind of picks up that form at the start of the year. But yeah, where they end up as teammates together, pretty much as expected. I thought Norris would beat him, and it was relatively comfortable in the end.
Harry, did it go roughly how you thought it was going to go?
Yeah, I think so. As Sam said, Piastri is only in year 2, and I've said many times this season, I think that's quite an easy fact to forget, just given how good he's been. Our expectations for him go up and up. But it's important to remember he's only in year 2. So I think it's probably about where it was. He's made some big leaps this year. Has given Norris something to think about, sometimes more than something to think about, especially on a race day. And I can only see that improving. So next year I expect to be, I think, mightily close between the two of them. But yeah, for now I think that's probably about where I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, I'll admit I was a bit wrong on this pre-season because I thought the gap was going to be larger than this. I kind of saw Piastri's gain coming between this year and next year rather than the first year and the second year. And in that sense, he's exceeded the expectations that I had for him. There's still a way to go, particularly in qualifying. Qualifying is the one where he really needs to step it up and get closer to being on a level playing field. But, during the races themselves, where Norris did make some mistakes throughout the year, Piastri, for the most part, was able to avoid them. So I've been impressed, and that gap was a little bit smaller than I thought it was going to be. Another one we got right between the three of us was Ferrari. We all said that Charles Leclerc would beat Carlos Sainz for the third consecutive year. 50 points exactly was the margin there, 340 to 290. Sam, your thoughts on that one?
Exactly as expected. Those two, I think, are by far the closest pairing in Formula One right now as teammates. Obviously, not anymore. Sainz did what Sainz always does. He's just Mr. Consistent, consistently not quite there with Charles Leclerc. And that's not to say that doesn't mean he's not very good. And he was very good, picking up a couple of wings, a couple of poles. Every time Leclerc was unable to do what Leclerc does, Sainz did relatively pick up the pieces for the most part. I'll be very happy with how Sainz has performed, but Charles Leclerc is Charles Leclerc. We could have got Leclerc for a reason, and he just keeps pulling it out the bag. So, no, not shocked at this. The team delivered, and they missed out on the championship by a tiny margin. So, I'm not surprised that as a pair, they delivered so close together.
To me, Harry, it's felt like the 4 years that these two drivers have been teammates, where the car has got better and better, the more Leclerc has kind of showed himself to be slightly superior to Carlos Sainz. We had a couple of years, 2021 and 2023, where it was very close between them. But we saw 2022 when, at least for half a season, they had a good car. And this season, of course, where they've had a good car for most of the year, that's where Charles Leclerc's extended the gap a little bit. Is that in line with what you're thinking with this partnership?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I would also say, though, I think 2024 has been Carlos Sainz's best year in F1. And I think that proves how good Charles Leclerc is. There's a debate around that one, but he's had a good year, has Sainz, and like I say, I think it just proves how strong Charles Leclerc is. So, like you said, Sam, a very strong partnership in Formula One, which I'm sure Fred Vasseur is very wary of. But this is probably again about where I thought it was going to be.
Another one we got correct was Red Bull. And boy, was it a nail biter. 437 to 152. So not far off 300 points separating
a whisker.
Those drivers. Yeah, we all said Verstappen, surprisingly. The one takeaway I had on this was I always look at kind of the percentage of points that each driver's taking of their total points for a team. And how that's gone. Again, this is another one we've got 4 years to compare the data. The first year they were teammates, Verstappen scored 68% of Red Bull's points. Year 2, which was 2022, that was actually Perez's best year because Verstappen only had 60% of the points. That then last year went up again to 67%, so roughly where it was in the first year. This year, 74% of all the points Red Bull scored, pretty much 3/4, was Verstappen's. It's pretty damning, that stat.
It's not ideal. It's not ideal for Sergio.
It's like standing on the tube and suddenly smelling a really eggy fart and you can't get out. You're like, this is horrible. Who's done that? This is horrible. It's hot. It's uncomfortable. You don't want to be around it. You're like, I'm 3 stops away. I've got to bear through this. He was
That
crap.
is a niche analogy, but I'm glad you committed.
Much like that tube journey. I'm glad it's over. He was crap. He was really crap. Sorry, Sergio. And Sergio, more Sergio fans than Sergio. Sergio has control over this. the fans who had to sit through it. And you know what? You Sergio fans are relentless. Bloody relentless. You back him. And I respect that. I really respect how much you stand by your driver. But it's been a tough year for him. And I think he'll secretly be a little bit glad that it's over now. Because it was not good. It was not good at all. He was, I know we're going to get onto this, Ben, but he was by far my biggest surprise of worst driver of the season. I didn't think it would get this bad.
I can't get over that analogy, can't lie. oh dear. Right, let's move on from Red Bull. Let's go to Mercedes, because this is where all of the getting right comes to an end. We all agreed that Lewis Hamilton would beat George Russell after beating him last year. Not to be. Lewis Hamilton had the lead for a good chunk of this season, but George Russell, some good pace in the second half of this season means he wins a narrow one, 245 to 223. A nice win, Sam, for Russell, given that he's obviously staying at the team. That gives him some nice momentum for next year.
Yeah, Russell will, I think, quietly walk away with a little smile about this one. I also think Russell had some really bad luck throughout the first period of the season. Things like the weight discrepancy in Spa. You know, he pulled off that fantastic strategy. I can't really blame him for the weight discrepancy. It's not like he's able to check what's going on during the Grand Prix to know if he's got that right. He had a couple of instances where luck did go his way on the other hand, though, where, you know, the crashing Austria meant that he was in third place, moved up to first, but got to be in it to win it. There were so many instances where I just think Russell was quietly the dark horse of a lot of Grand Prix where he was elevating that car. So I do think this is the correct telling of the story. I don't feel like Russell's ending up there because of a one-off good result that was some good luck that went his way. And I don't think Hamilton will be too disheartened. He knows how bad his year's been. He's been very open and honest about it. So, yeah, I think it's okay.
Good news for Sergio Perez. I've got a stat about Aston Martin that might be even more damning than the Perez one. How about this one, Harry? If Fernando Alonso, after the Japanese Grand Prix, which was race 4 of the season, decided, you know what, I'm done for the year. Done for the year. 20 races, sits them all out. He would have drawn 24 all with Lance Stroll this season.
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Crap.
Oh, crap. That is damning. That is more damning than your Perez stat. But,
well, let's focus on the positive of it, because Fernando Alonso didn't have much to work with this year, but the fact he's got to 70 points. Ready to go?
I think so. I mean, that car was okay at the start of the year, wasn't it? And boy, did Fernando make the most of it, because then it was not okay for a lot of the year, and he couldn't make any headway. I think, yeah, I don't think it's Alonso, as we said in, I think, our power rankings, his head dropped a bit in the middle part of the year because he's old and there's a lot of effort to drag that around.
Yeah.
But he definitely picked up again towards the latter stages of the season, picking up some more points. So yeah, it's just, I think Alonso dragging around a car that didn't want to do a lot of what he was making it do. He was hustling, even in those early races where it was a slightly better car. I saw the other day the clip of him making that save in China, which I'd completely forgotten about, whilst he's chasing Hamilton down. He was ragging around that Aston Martin. So, yeah, overall pretty good season from Alonso, and that car probably didn't deserve the amount of points that it got from his side of the garage.
You've done a very good job of summarising Alonso's season. You've also done a good job of describing Alonso's career. That feels like the case nearly every year with Fernando Alonso. Let's head into the second half of the championship, because finally we did have some disagreement, and it came at Alpine. Pierre Gasly versus Esteban Ocon. Gasly with a narrow win last year, and even with taking out the points that Gasly scored at Abu Dhabi because they weren't technically teammates of that race, it's still a win for Pierre Gasly by 13 points, 36 to 23. Sam, you were the only one who picked Pierre Gasly. Well done, sir.
Yes, it's time for the smug face.
It's a real shame it's null and void this season.
No, don't wear it.
Yeah, so
oh, it's constant excuse.
I wanted him to get excited before
It's unfortunate, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people will give me the wing. It's fine.
It's a democracy here. Democracy here. 2 versus 1.
Unless I say no.
Yeah, I mean, take your victory lap, Sam. Your thoughts on Gasly?
He was superb. Through the first half of the season, it was very much tough to pick between them. There were a couple of errors from Ocon's side, but Ocon's pace equally was so good regularly that it's a shame he wasn't there really for the rest of the season to compete with it. It did seem clear that after the Monaco incident, the car development very much went towards Gasly. He was able to control what went on the car and what didn't, it seems like. Do you remember that period of time where they were swapping back and forth between who had the heavier car and the development on the car?
Good times.
Yeah, foreign concept to design two cars that were the same weight.
Shocking, I know. And then one day that kind of just stopped and that became Gasly's car, I think. The better car just became Gasly's car. But he didn't disappoint with it. It's not like he didn't go anywhere with it at all. He regularly scored brilliant points over the last 5 or 6 Grand Prix, qualified so regularly inside the top 10, and in the last 3 or 4 Grand Prix inside the top 6 or 7, which is sublime, truly phenomenal. He showed the Gasly that we knew in AlphaTauri after he kind of stepped back from Red Bull, and I was really impressed with his latter half of the season. I'm not going to be harsh on Ocon. I do think he was kicked out too quickly, treated unfairly, and was unable to showcase what he truly is able to do. He's a very good racing driver, and I imagine if they had equal machinery, this would have really gone down to the wire. So I'm not going to be too silly and gloaty because I did get this one handed to me a little bit.
Yeah, I think Ocon had a pretty good season based on what he had to work with, which was nothing. I think at the end of the season, that Alpine for Gasly was probably on a par with the Mercedes of a couple of years ago. Like, it was that good. And the Alpine that Ocon was driving, I think he might have been walking. I'm not sure he was driving. So
Fred Flintstone style.
Yeah. Fair play to what both of them have done in a car that was not very good. It felt like to me that I know Ocon made the most of it with that second place finish at Brazil. When it was decided he was leaving, it was always going to be an uphill battle from there for him. Because at that point, it was fairly close between the two of them. But it makes sense. Well, the decision I don't think made sense. But after they made the decision, them prioritising Gasly, sure, of course you're going to. Who's up next on our list? Haas. We're back to agreement because we all said Nico Hülkenberg was going to beat Kevin Magnussen. And he did. 41 points to 16. Harry, this felt pretty similar to 2023, apart from in 2023, Hülkenberg qualified well, and then they had no race pace, so they just dropped back to Magnussen. This year, Hülkenberg was actually able to take advantage of some of those qualifying performances.
Yeah, I think we just applied 2023 logic to this one, and it actually paid off because the Haas did have race pace. I probably didn't think it was going to be as big a gap between them as it was. Some of K-Mag's early performances this year were not great. He certainly came on strong towards the end of the year when it was all too late for his F1 seat. But yeah, I think, to be honest, it's more a comment or compliment towards Hülkenberg, who has been sublime this year. Underrated driver of the season, I think. He has been, bar Qatar, where he was terrible. Apart from that, he's been sublime. So, yeah, a deserved win versus K-Mag. It wasn't really a close one at all.
Yeah, and it's a good thing for Magnussen that it hasn't hurt him in his quest to get that Red Bull seat for next season, and they're going with him anyway. But yeah, he'd like to have exited Haas with a win, I'm sure.
Do you remember when Lewis Hamilton hadn't re-signed for Mercedes for ages, even in before pre-season? Who was the person we were peddling the rumor of that was going to replace him? Was it Gutierrez?
Probably.
Oh, it's always Esteban Gutierrez.
If in doubt, it's Gutierrez. Yeah,
that sounds like late breaking. Sure. A few more teams to look at. We go to RB next. Now, of course, this one ended earlier than expected based on Ricciardo leaving the team and Liam Lawson replacing him. But we all said Daniel Ricciardo would beat Yuki Tsunoda. He did not. 22 points to 12 in favour of Yuki Tsunoda. I mean, Sam, given that we are often outed as being Ricciardo haters, we sure do have a lot of support for someone who didn't win. I
love to support the people that I despise. That is just how I live life. I lift those up who I detest the most. So privately, we all know who sits on my shoulders firmly. Yeah, I mean, Ricardo claimed that he had a cracked chassis. There was something wrong with his car for a while. And then he fell into his good form kind of period, that purple form, as the car just became really bad. That Spain area, the RB suddenly dropped back from being a back end of the points occasionally, as we so regularly saw, to being a 15th, 16th, 17th place contender. And it was so difficult to show any promise, any progress in his ability. And I think, unfortunately, by the time that they got fed up with him, the car hadn't improved at all. And then we saw a couple of better races later on where Lawson and Tsunoda scored points again. He really was negatively affected by the timing of the season and the way the car was developed. But Tsunoda, you know, he just kept soldiering on, even when the car was bad, even when the form was struggling, even when he had to go up and another teammate, even when there are stories about him not getting a shout for the Red Bull seat. He comes out time and time again, and for the most part, beats his teammate, regardless of who it is. He had a really solid year, probably the best year I've seen Tsunoda have. And he's got nothing, I don't think, to really show for it.
Yeah, I need to stop going against Yuki Tsunoda. I'm still burned by the fact that I said De Vries would beat him.
Yeah, same.
Harry, I assume next year you'll still pick Ricciardo.
I have to. It's the law.
Yeah.
This is probably one for pump the brakes. If Daniel Ricciardo had as good a start to the season as Yuki Tsunoda, if he was equal to, didn't have the issues that he did, he sat in the Red Bull next year. This they have to discuss now, but my point being, I think that, and whether you blame the cracked chassis or not, that affected his standing within Red Bull so much that it probably was never going to turn back. And as you said, Sam, as soon as his form did begin to pick up, it was too late because the car, they put upgrades on it and then it never recovered. It recovered a little bit towards the end, as you mentioned, but it just never recovered. And then became a bit invisible. Yeah, I was surprised by how this one went, particularly at the beginning of the season. I thought they would have been closer.
For those wondering, we didn't predict Tsunoda versus Lawson when the change was made, but Tsunoda beat Lawson 8 points to 4. Another driver who had two teammates throughout the year was Alex Albon, and him versus Sargent was the one that we predicted, obviously, at the beginning of the season, and he won that one 4-0. He also beat Franco Colapinto 8-5. We all got this one right. Not much to say here.
We all said he shouldn't be in that seat.
Yeah. To be fair, that Williams was not very good to start this year, and Albon had to take advantage of a couple of opportunities, but there weren't many of them. He did very well at the Monaco Grand Prix, if you remember. He finished 9th there. Basically, their car was so heavy, similar to Alpine, and there were just a couple of races here and there where it wasn't the end of the world. Monaco was one of them, and Albon took advantage of it, so fair play to him. The last one, this has real Robert Kubica beating George Russell in Williams vibes.
Unbelievable.
No offence to Zhou Guanyu, who had a very, very good Qatar Grand Prix, but I feel like his 4-0 win over Valtteri Bottas is a bit misleading.
He's done us there.
If The Sixth Sense as a film was a racing driver, this is the end you wouldn't expect after watching that season.
So anyway, maybe it was Bottas conspiring against us to ensure that we all got another one wrong, which means at the end of this season, I finish up with 6 points. Harry Eade, looking for his first Teammate Wars win, has finished up with 6 points, which is 1 point short of Mr. Sam Sage, who takes the victory with 7 out of 10.
Yay. Thanks, gang.
Collectively, not our best Teammate Wars.
I think 7 out of 10 is acceptable.
I mean, it's acceptable, but it wouldn't be a winning score most years.
No, I think we've had 8s and 9s pretty regularly.
Before.
Yeah.
Speak for yourselves.
Sorry, what one have you won?
That's what I'm saying. Speak for yourselves.
Oh, Harry's like, I want a 5.
I think we're exactly where you want us.
The sniper meme comes out again.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always next year.
Exactly. 2025 is the year of Harry.
I'm backing it. Come on, Team Eade.
It's like a really terrible Chinese calendar.
Yeah, it's not
year of Harry.
The internet will tell you it's the year of the snake, but it's not. It's the year of Harry.
Is it actually the year of the snake?
I believe so.
I'm
Why
impressed
do you know
that.
that? Yeah, why do you know that?
It came up in work. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay, move on.
Can't wait for that social post.
The Aston Martin snake.
We're going to take our second break. On the other side, we're looking at drivers' predictions and we're looking at constructors' predictions.
Oh, God.
The pain goes on.
Now we get to see if our constructors' predictions have fared any better than our teammate wars predictions. No, we haven't, but we'll do them anyway.
So what's this episode doing? Episode of misery.
We predicted all of these, by the way, from first down to 10th. We all predicted that the defending constructors champions, Red Bull, would reclaim their crown. They did not. It was actually McLaren who won, so that's not a very good start. But second and third place, there is a point to give out because two of us had Mercedes in second and Ferrari in third. No points for that. But one of us at the beginning of the season who questioned in the very episode, do I have mug written on my forehead, has got a point for Ferrari finishing second. So well done, Mr. Harry Eade.
Well done,
Hey! Oh, God, I thought it was going to be Sam.
Nope, your faith in Ferrari has helped you out here.
The word mug on my forehead is a 101 Harry Eade phrase.
I accept
But it was
that.
on our foreheads.
It is.
Yeah,
Hold on.
Good. Sam's put a mug on his forehead.
It's very physical humour unless you're on YouTube.
Humour's stretching it.
We're all laughing.
Sure. So yeah, well done, Harry. Managed to get Ferrari ahead of Mercedes. And it wasn't Mercedes that came next either, because it was Red Bull who finished third. And if you're paying attention, we all said Red Bull would win. So
I was going to win this 1-0.
we're still at 1-0. And if you have paid attention, none of us have said McLaren yet, and they won the championship. We all put them fourth.
Okay, that little bubble's done now.
Yes.
There's a new leaf to turn over.
Before we move on to the next couple, just a quick question on this one, Sam. Obviously, all three of us had more faith in Mercedes than we did McLaren going into this season, and we were proven very, very wrong. What's up with that?
We're morons.
Yeah.
I mean, on a serious answer, Mercedes are the most successful team of all time in terms of consecutive world titles. They're only a couple of years off of that. They had Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, who are way more experienced as a partnership than Norris and Piastri at that point. You'd like to think that Mercedes, who are supplying McLaren their engines, would beat the team they're supplying. They are the works team. You know, loads of things. And when you look at how, I'm going to bring it up, McLaren started 2023 with a 17th and a DNF. The fact that within one season, they've gone on to then turn that around to win the whole thing felt very unlikely, but they defied the odds.
They did indeed. I was surprised with how slow Mercedes started this year because, I mean, my prediction was that they weren't going to be brilliant out the gates and then improve as the year went on because they finally had a concept that they somewhat understand. I'm not convinced they ever did fully understand it, but whilst that was true, they did improve throughout the year and they did fight for wins at some points. They just, the start was so bad. They weren't competing for podiums until we got sort of 1/3 of the way through the year. So we were all wrong on that. Now, fifth place. Aston Martin finished fifth. Two of us said Aston Martin would finish fifth.
It's not me, is it?
One of us said RB would finish fifth.
I said RB will finish fifth.
Well, it's good to know you're right about one thing, Sam.
I remember
It's just not the thing you need to be right about. Myself and Harry.
Buying those top 5 finishes that they were coming out with.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get on to it, but it's not just you that's been mugged off, really, because we both get a point, Harry, but we also said that RB would finish 6th, which they did not. And Sam, you said Aston Martin would be 6th. So somehow it was Alpine that ended up finishing there.
Oh, it's another one that's wrong as well, then.
Yeah, that's the problem with these predictions. As soon as you get one wrong, it's a bit of a chain reaction.
None right.
There's still a few to go. 7th place was Haas. None of us predicted Haas would finish 7th. I said Alpine would finish 7th, so I'm annoyed because I'm only one out with that. You both said Williams, which...
No.
No.
Again, no, wrong. Still wrong. There's only one team not mentioned yet.
They are based on 23 though. That's not the worst shout in the world, I don't think, but they certainly didn't build on it.
No, I actually think they under-delivered.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I think they...
Was it a surprise that they had? I know they're focusing on 2026, but they ended 23 quite well. So
I'm surprised that I think it would have been acceptable for them to lose out to your Haas, your Alpine, your RB, but by a much smaller margin. This was a disastrous year, really, if you look at where the points lie. They, in terms of a percentage difference, I think they're as far away from that middle pack as Aston Martin are away from Mercedes in fourth. It's a huge gap to something you need to make up.
And it's not like, I know that Logan Sargent didn't help matters. And if Colapinto had started the season, they might have scored a few more points. They weren't getting in the fight ahead of them. Like, they were pretty solidly ninth. And I know Alpine had a good dollop of luck with what happened at the Brazilian GP, not putting down their performances. They were both excellent that day. But certainly weird factors and weather factors helped them out that day. But even with some of Gasly's late season performances, Alpine still would have beaten them. So, yeah, not a good year for Williams. Unfortunately, whilst I was a little bit closer to being right about Williams, I was still not right about them because I said they'd be 8th, which they weren't. It was RB. And you both said Alpine.
No.
Which leaves us with 2 to go, 9th and 10th place. Harry's got 2 points. I've got 1 point. Sam has got zilch.
I ain't getting any points.
And if you've been paying attention, Sauber and Haas have not been mentioned yet.
Mm.
And Sauber finished 10th. One of us said Sauber would finish 10th and Haas would finish 9th. 2 of us had it the other way round, which is good for no points.
I massively recall calling one team the imposters for a lot of last year. Slightly concerned.
Yeah, you did call them imposters a lot, but you did put faith in them to beat Sauber.
Yes! Come from behind.
No.
All right, the no levels were high, and then the wink and finger.
Hey, everyone on the podcast would have known.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
Sure. Just relying on no one watching the video. Yeah, I said Sauber and then Haas. Harry said Sauber and then Haas. I mean, to be fair, Haas, can you blame us? Like, they were really bad last year. We didn't know that Komatsu could cook as much as he has.
He had a massive frying pan. We had no idea.
Michelin star Komatsu out here absolutely cooking. Which means, Sam, you do get 1 point. I get 1 point, but Harry Eid, you win the Constructors.
Have I ever won anything on these?
Yes, you have.
Have I?
Yeah, it's just you never win teammate wars.
Nah.
I think it's funnier when you do win other things and not teammate wars.
Yeah. And you only even win this by 1 point. Look how disastrous low this was. 2-1-1.
Can't hear you.
Do you remember that year we had 1-0-0, which I think that was the year you also won?
Yes, we both scored 1 point, Sam.
It was 1-1-0 and I was 1-0.
Well, 1 point wasn't enough to win it this time around because Harry, with the almighty score of 2, takes victory. Drivers' Championship. So as a reminder, we did 1st through to 6th, and then biggest surprise, biggest letdown, and the Wooden Spoon Award. These predictions start very well. We all said Verstappen would win the Drivers' Championship. He did.
I'll take it. We've got a point. I'll take it.
Kaboom.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I color-coded this in Excel. There's a lot more red than green. 2nd place. We all said the same person would finish 2nd. Do you recall who it was?
Lewis Hamilton.
No.
Charles
Leclerc.
No.
Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're freaking laugh. He did it last year, didn't he?
Disgusting. I'll be real. Do you know, I was thinking about this the other day. We have been absolutely mugged off by GP and his laugh in pre-season testing.
Genuinely.
Goodness me, we were scared for this year. I mean,
by the time he was right, because they started very well.
Very well.
It's just on GP not to know that it was going to end very quickly.
I've never seen a more menacing, muted laugh. There was no audio to that laugh, and I was terrified.
It was Verstappen set like a ridiculous time in testing, and he was just laughing. Oh dear, we should have known.
We're so bloody good for 4 races.
So Perez didn't finish second. He finished 8th. Third and 4th place.
Every single one's going to be wrong.
Oh, no.
No. There's a point to be given out here because 2 of us said Hamilton would be 3rd and Leclerc would be 4th. That's good for no points. But 1 of us said Charles Leclerc would finish 3rd, which he did, and then Hamilton would finish 4th.
Surely Harry, because he put Ferrari at top of constructors.
No, because I'm an idiot.
Not that much of an idiot.
Oh, I did.
You did put Charles Leclerc 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, so you get a point there.
Blimey.
Well done, mate.
Thank you so much.
So we were all wrong about 4th place because that went to Oscar Piastri. 5th and 6th. Harry.
Hi there.
It actually went Sainz 5th, Russell 6th. You had Russell 5th.
Sainz 6th.
No, worse. You said Alonso would be 6th.
That's unfortunate.
Also, you can't have had Sainz 5th and Russell 6th. Sorry, that way around, because that's what I did. I got them the wrong way around.
Oh, no.
Sam? I think I put Sainz in my top 6.
I wish I could invalidate your results based on how poorly you remember what you said.
Oh.
Because you did put Sainz 5th and you did put Russell 6th, so you get a point for both.
Yes! I love surprising myself.
I didn't do that. Winner did it!
You imagine what I'm like at birthdays and Christmas when I forget that I've asked for things.
Goodness me.
A couple here that are a bit more up for debate. Well, at least a couple of these are up for debate. So, biggest surprise. Now, and a positive surprise as well. Harry, I'll be real with you.
Okay.
I've already put yours in red.
Okay.
If you want to debate it, I encourage you, but you're going to have a hard time.
I'm quite tired. I'm not going to bother debating it.
Do you want to try and debate that the biggest surprise of the season was Daniel Ricciardo?
No.
Good call.
Fair.
Now, Sam, I think you deserve a point on this one. You said the biggest surprise would be Oscar Piastri. I think that's fair.
I think you could debate that. That was correct. He did a great job. Did way more than I ever thought he was. Closer than Norris. I'm proud of that one.
Go on, then you can have a point. My one's tough because in terms of finishing position, in terms of points, it's definitely not right. But in terms of performance, I might argue that it is. Valtteri Bottas.
I'll give it, yeah.
I was impressed by Bottas this season, even if the results don't show it.
I'll give it, yeah.
It's Christmas after all.
I guess Valtteri Bottas.
Well, thank you very much, because I'm not getting any points for biggest letdown because I put Oscar Piastri. You put the same person. You both had Esteban Ocon.
Well, he crashed into his teammate and Monaco get fired. I personally can't give myself a point for it, though.
Nah. It wasn't a letdown. Love you, Esty.
So,
Alpine with a letdown.
Esty
no
bestie.
points all round. Wooden spoon. The funniest thing is, I think you can have 3 legitimate correct answers for wooden spoon this year. The actual correct answer is Jack Doohan. He finished last in the championship, but if you want to say that doesn't count because he wasn't racing to start the year, then you've got Logan Sargent. But if you also want to make the case, well, he didn't finish the year, then you could put Valtteri Bottas. Good news is, none of us picked any of those 3 names.
We all say Zhou Guan Yu.
Sam, you said Zhou Guan Yu, and you were the closest of the 3 of us of being right. Because both myself and Harry, based on not thinking Haas would be very good, put Kevin Magnussen, who scored 16 points. So,
well, can't win them all.
No, which we regularly prove. Sam, you've actually won this one. You get 4 points for the driver's predictions. Myself and Harry both have 2.
Cool. I'll take it.
And that is it. That's our pre-season predictions reviewed. Not many right, but we tried.
Collectively, as a team, we've got about 9 of 30 or odd points correct.
I think that's pretty good going, actually.
Pretty good. So it's almost a third.
Brilliant.
It's all right, that is. Should we take our 3rd break on this episode and play a little bit of fill in the blank?
Who's Phil?
Who's Phil?
Welcome back, everyone. It's time to play Fill in the Blank.
F1, fill in the... Who's Phil? That is my proudest one.
That's terrible. I forgot how terrible that was. I'm sure we must have got that re-recorded. Why did that one not get re-recorded?
What do you mean? Why did that one not get re-recorded? That's artistry.
I've seen that. That's in the modern art museum.
Why is there a cockerel?
Why not?
That's on you. You pick the random music.
You just go walk around your town every morning. Like, what are you doing, cockerel? Why do you exist? Cockerels exist, all right, Harry. Deal with it.
The mind
Wake up.
The mind of me, created mind of me.
Wake up and smell the cockerel.
Is a wonder to behold. A little piano medley followed by a cockerel and Sam saying, "Who's Phil?" That's genius.
Oh God.
Oh boy. Fill in the blank. There are 3 statements. There is a blank in each of them, and we have to fill that in with a word that we think is appropriate. So, first statement. The driver who will be most disappointed in their 2024 season is blank. Sam.
I've already alluded to it earlier. Sergio Perez. You'll find it on Power Rankings where I placed him, but he was really bad. Completely missed the mark, and that little points in comparison to Verstappen, not good enough.
I'm going to steal Harry's impromptu pump the brakes because it's very similar to the point I was going to make here. I think the most disappointing season is Daniel Ricciardo because I don't think he needed to be that good to get the Red Bull seat for next season. I don't think we needed to see the Daniel Ricciardo of 10 years ago. And the fact that he couldn't really get anywhere near that is why I think that's the most disappointing. Harry?
Yeah, Danny Rick. As Sam's already pointed out, Perez was not good, and I'm with you, Ben. I think, as I said, I think he has a better start to this year. It doesn't have to be legendary stuff, just better than terrible. And I think he's in that Red Bull seat, so I think he'll rue how the 2/3 of the year he did, how it went.
Next one, the Chinese GP being extended until 2030 is blank, Sam.
Fabulous.
Ooh,
I think it's
fabulous.
I think it's a real part of the F1 calendar. I've loved the Shanghai track for a long time. Produces great racing. We regularly get a bit of a banger there. One in every 8 or 9 is a duff one. Ironically, the landmark.
Only when it's the 1,000th race.
Only when it's the 1,000. When it's 2,000, I'm sure it'll be terrible again as well. But for the most part, I think it produces really fun racing. We've got a lot of classic F1 moments from that racetrack. Most famously, all of Sebastian Buemi's tyres popping off at once, which is simply sublime. So, yeah, really pleased that they got an extension.
I think Buemi might disagree with you. No,
he might be over it by now.
This is sublime.
Fight me, Buemi.
Oh, God. Harry Hill setting up fights again. Harry Eade, what have you got?
I've said encouraging because we are, the Chinese GP existed without Zhou Guanyu. Let's be clear, but I'm sure the F1 were maybe wary, or the Chinese GP were wary, of losing Zhou from the grid and their prospects for a future with so many other races available now. But it shows the faith F1 has in that circuit in the market of China for F1. So encouraging signs for the Chinese GP, and like you, Sam, I'm very very happy staying because it's a good old track.
Yep, I've just gone with it's a positive. It's a good racetrack. There is a little bit. I know he didn't make this statement about non-European races, but it does amuse me that we've had a couple of extensions almost immediately after Domenicali's like, yeah, we're going to introduce some real variety. We're going to introduce races that change around each year, and then all of a sudden, 2 races, including Monza, have been extended. But I would have this on an every year deal anyway. So to have it locked in for another 6 years or so, that's good news, I think. The last one, there will be blank drivers involved in a championship fight next season. Harry, we're looking for a number. What have you got?
5.
Oh boy.
Do I have to name them?
No, but 5 in a fight. subscribe me.
I truly, where F1 is and how competitive F1 is right now, and the fact that we don't have any rule change for next year, real focus on development because of the fact we have 2026 coming, I think we could see a real scrap. We saw it in 2021 with Hamilton and Verstappen, but I think F1 is a closer sport in terms of performance now than it was even in 2021. So I'm going bold. I think you could have 5 in there.
I thought I was going to be the positive one, and I have been proven wrong because I've only got 4 in the fight. But hey, 5 sounds good to me. If we get a position similar to the end of this season, and if that form continues, we could have a very exciting title fight next season. If you look at since the summer break, the Drivers' Championship looks like this. Leclerc 179, Norris 175, Verstappen 160.
Ooh.
19 points between 3 drivers. And to be honest, Russell, Sainz, and Piastri are not a million miles off that either. So, yeah, I think there is a chance that whoever it might be, we've got multiple cars in a fight next season. Sam?
Harry stole the number right off my abacus. I was also going to go for 5. I genuinely think I will name some names. I think both Ferrari drivers, both McLaren drivers, and Verstappen could really bring it down to the wire. I really do think there's a real chance that goes a good portion into the season.
I can't wait for the championship to be decided by Belgium,
and it'd be won by Lance
Kimi
Stroll.
Antonelli.
Sure.
Just one more thing to do before we go. No question of the week this week. You'd have seen that we did put a post out on Monday, but the answers for Hall of Fame will come on the LB Awards next week. We do need to do our final F1 fantasy update of the season. Before we get into any of the standings from us or the top 3 in the championship at large, a big thank you to Beef, who's done a tremendous job all season with updates in our Discord. We take all the credit revealing results on here, but she does all the hard work behind the scenes, always providing Discord updates for everyone who's interested in how we're doing and how the championship's doing. So thank you very much, Beef.
Fantasy Beef.
Nice. Sure.
No. Abu Dhabi, let's start with that. First place for Abu Dhabi was Handsome Charles. Well done, Handsome Charles.
He is handsome.
Yeah. Second was Ugly Charles.
I don't know that one.
No. Always second, aren't you, Ugly Charles?
Is that real? Have you just made that up?
There's no team called Ugly Charles. Top 3 in the championship overall.
Go third to first.
I will go third to first. Sweet Papayas is in third, 5,602 points. Well done to you. Prancing Zebras in second, 5,628. But winning the league and finishing 185th in the world is The Cinquento, 5,667.
Wow, you beat me, Kirsty, and Harry in the world table than what we achieved in our own league.
But I mean, Harry's going to be pleased that you've grouped all 3 of you together.
Very, very close between us, actually.
I was thinking insult to Kirsty, I'm sorry.
How have the 4 of us done? Well, I actually remembered to use a chip this weekend. The Limitless chip, which helped me out because I gained 28 positions, finishing 103rd, just outside the top 100 in the end. Kirsty also made progress on the final race of the season, up 14 positions, 219th. Sam, you're also in the 200s, 23 positions gained. A very strong end to the season for you, up to 275th. Harry, you came into the weekend 1,434th, and I set you the target to get into the 1,300s. Do you think you did it?
Well, I mean, I know the answer, so...
Can you say it?
No.
No, you didn't. It was a good effort, to be fair. You were also up 23 positions to 1,411th.
Damn you, Valtteri Bottas, and your inability to do the WGP. Could have been make or break.
If it's any consolation, which it definitely won't be, 1411 was actually the year of the Battle of Harlaw, which is one of the bloodiest fights that Scotland's ever had. Really? But it was actually determined a draw because there was no clear winner or loser.
Well,
so
there you go.
If you want to,
Last goal wins. I said it.
Inconclusive this fantasy year. Yeah.
I think we can call that safely. Everyone's a winner.
Prefer the Battle of the Somme myself.
Actually, I think the real winner is podcasting. Let's be real.
You know
all the podcasting from Harry Eid there.
That's a beautiful way to end this episode, Harry. I agree with you. I'm sure
we'll be back
with F1 Fantasy next season, where we will ask the question again: can Harry Eid win?
The everlasting story.
I forgot to use my final fix chip as well.
I didn't use it either, mate.
I forgot to use a 3 times DRS. That's
it's still 103rd.
Probably should have used that.
Oh,
yeah,
mate.
I've been in the top 100 otherwise. Right. That is going to do it for this episode. We've got a full championship review coming at the weekend, and we've got the LB Awards, Sam, coming next week.
Yeah, we are still absolute content packed, and it doesn't just stop at the end of December either. We don't go anywhere. We're here all the way through January, into February, and into the new season. So stick around, get your F1 fix, lots of silliness, lots of reviews, and then we'll be kicking off with lots of news and rumours as well. So thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking about. Join us for all the fun stuff at the end of the year. Come and meet Clives. Come and get your LB Hall of Fame involved. Come and get your votes for all the awards that we're going to do. A full LBs is a fantastic one if you've never experienced the LBs before. And if you're everything ad-free, then go to Patreon. Patreon, the link is in the description. You can get your Patreon subscription. It helps out the show massively. Join the Discord to be involved in all the activities as well. Follow us on social, Late Breaking F1, and watch us on YouTube, Late Breaking F1. That's it from us. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been Andy Williams.
And remember, keep breaking late.
A most wonderful time of the year.
Come on.